righty. All right. Sending out one link and we should be ready to go here. Of course, internet's never as fast as you want it to be. All righty. 3, 2. All right. We are out and about. All right. So welcome on in to those tuning in to the live edition of the Blue Horseshoe Pod instant reaction to the Colts schedule. If you're checking us out for the first time, welcome. We appreciate you kind of checking us out here. Hopefully, if you are a fan, like what you hear, make sure you subscribe on YouTube where you are right now, Blue Horseshoe Podcast. Also, check us out wherever you do get your pods, Blue Horseshoe Pod. We got a lot to talk about here. I want to hear your reactions to, because this is not just a pod where I give my reactions and my takes. I want to hear from you, the fan, of how you look at this Colts schedule, where your belief level is in this team. You look at this schedule now. What are we saying win-loss wise? What game are you most looking forward to? When will Anthony Richardson start? And also, too, do the Colts get screwed with zero primetime games this year, despite the fact that I do have the number 4 overall pick and a guy that I think is very intriguing for the entirety of the NFL to watch, and that is Anthony Richardson. So I want to hear a lot of your thoughts here. The best and easiest way to do so, right in the chat. Type away your thoughts. Let me know what game you are most looking forward to watching this year for the Colts. When Anthony Richardson, now that we see the schedule, is there a soft landing? Should they keep him on the shelf for a little bit and wait till an easier part of the schedule opens up? Should they have a primetime game? And which game are you looking forward to the most? Again, love to hear your thoughts right here in the chat. Let's hear, Colts fans. Let's go. The schedule's finally released. We could start to look ahead towards the 2023 season. Let's start here. Let's start when it comes to the schedule and it comes to Anthony Richardson playing. Because for me, when you look at the schedule, there's one of two ways you can kind of go about getting a young rookie quarterback ready to go. Or you can sit behind a veteran, play Gardner Minshew the first 2, 3, 4 weeks if they are challenging, if they are a gauntlet, and then play the rookie. We saw that last year with the Steelers. They played Mitch Trubisky, I believe it was the first 3 games, maybe 4 of the season, then finally brought Kenny Pickett in after the schedule kind of softened up after a first rough month for the Steelers. If you're the Colts right now, I don't think there's any reason to keep Anthony Richardson on the bench. You should absolutely start in week number 1, because look at the schedule. We kind of knew this even before we got it today. When you look at the opponents, this Colts schedule is very, very manageable. There's not a lot of brutal teams on the roster. Or on the schedule, I should say. There's not a ton of stretches we're looking at and say, man, that is murderer's row. You start at home against the Jaguars week number 1. I think absolutely that should be when Anthony Richardson starts. You're not going against the 85 Bears defense. You're not going against the 49ers defense. You're not taking on Bill Belichick and all his tricks he has for a rookie quarterback and kind of throwing them in the blender. You get the Jaguars at home week number 1, at the Texans week number 2. Sure, this next little stretch here is a little tough. At Baltimore, home against the Rams, who still have a lot of talent on that defense, and then home against Tennessee before you go back on the road and play Jacksonville again. But those are manageable games where it should not be overwhelming for Anthony Richardson. It's not an unfair situation where you're kind of throwing the quarterback into the deep end right away and having him sink or swim. That is absolutely a manageable stretch to start the first 6 weeks of the year, where there should really be no excuse, assuming Richardson progresses the way we think he should. And you hear the Colts already talk about how pro-ready he is, and he's more pro-ready than what a lot of people thought coming out of Florida. This should absolutely be a situation where the Colts, from the jump, from week number 1, start Anthony Richardson. That's why I did and was excited to kind of see the schedule come out, just because now you kind of are able to see, okay, is there a soft window here to start? Is it a soft opening where it does make sense to start Richardson? Or if it's tough, if you have the Patriots, week number one, followed by the Browns week number two and the Ravens week three, maybe you could say to yourself, all right, we'll start Gardner Minshew, let him kind of take his licks to start the first few weeks of the season, then play Anthony Richardson. But the schedule and how it plays out, Jaguars, Texans, Ravens, Rams, Titans, first 5 games of the season, you should absolutely play Anthony Richardson in week number one. Let's talk about this because I do think the Colts are disrespected in this area. I think the Colts got screwed when it comes to not having any primetime games. Look, I get they're not going to be a very good team, and we'll get into win-loss here in a second, but I think they should have had one primetime game. And honestly, it probably would have been a Thursday, but this year, the new rule that you don't have to play on Thursday, they are not forcing every team to do that. I still think the Colts should have gotten a Thursday night game just because Anthony Richardson, to me, is a draw. Like Anthony Richardson is a massive question mark. And I'm going to use the word a lot of Colts personnel have used and a lot of people have used to describe Richardson, in this draft process. He's an alien. And I don't know about you, I'm intrigued, even if I wasn't a Colts fan, in the alien that is Anthony Richardson. I want to see if I was a Panthers fan or if I was a Bengals fan. I'm intrigued by Anthony Richardson, who has a world of talent, who has a ton of potential, who physically is sculpted like a Greek god. I want to see how he is able to take his game to the NFL level, if he's able to figure out some consistency, how Shane Steichen is going to be able to develop him throughout the season. If I'm just a neutral NFL fan, not a Colts fan, I personally think that there is a lot of intrigue in wanting to see Anthony Richardson at some point in a nationally televised game. Now, I know the Colts technically are on national TV because they are playing in London against the Patriots. Or excuse me, in London, in Germany, in Frankfurt. Excuse me. I'm so used to saying London. It's kind of just, burned in the brain. But they are playing the Patriots in Frankfurt. And that's obviously a game that's going to be an exclusive window, 9:30 a.m. Eastern in week number 10. So sure, the Colts can, if you want to say they have a standalone game, they do. But I do think the Colts deserved a Thursday night game. Put it against the Panthers, Frank Reich revenge, number one versus number four. To me, that's a very, very intriguing matchup there in week number 9 when you have the Panthers and the Colts going on Thursday night. I think to me that's a very good Thursday night game. So when you look at least having 0 primetime games, I do think the Colts unfairly got screwed out of this, especially too when you look at some other teams that got, primetime games and who didn't. The Colts are one of 4 teams who did not get a primetime game. They are in the same cluster as the Texans, Falcons, Cardinals. I would argue out of those 4, the Colts do not deserve to be in that category. Not from a record perspective, because I do think the Colts will be in that neighborhood, but from an intrigue perspective, I think they are more exciting and intriguing than the Cardinals, especially with Kyler Murray going to be out for most of the year. I think they're way more exciting and intriguing than the Falcons. And the Texans have CJ Stroud, sure, they have D'Amico Ryans. They got nothing else. That roster stinks. Colts are light years ahead of the Texans in terms of roster-wise. So I think that in terms of, the other 3 teams the Colts are grouped in terms of not having any primetime games, I think the Colts got screwed. And you look at some of the teams that got some, the Commanders got 1. Why? Are people going to want to see Sam Howell in primetime? I'm not. The Buccaneers got 2. And look, this has come from someone who I'm a Baker Mayfield fan. I think he's going to have success in Tampa this year. And I still think there's some talent post Tom Brady to where the Buccaneers could compete in a weak NFC, compete for the division. But is there any appeal? Is there any sexiness to watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers twice in primetime this year? I would argue no. And let's stay in the division. The Tennessee Titans have 2 primetime games this year. Why? Why? Who wants to watch Ryan Tannehill? Who wants to watch a roster that is falling apart in front of our eyes? Prime time is about getting eyeballs to the sets, right? Is trying to draw in a crowd, especially on a Thursday night. And to me, Richardson is way more of a draw than anything right now Tampa Bay is throwing on the field. Anything Tennessee is throwing on the field. The Rams are even a massive question mark at getting 2 primetime games. I have no idea what to expect from the Rams. They could be 11-5. They also could be 5-11. That is one of the teams right now that I truly have zero read on whatsoever. But you look around and some of the other teams, Washington getting a primetime game, Buccaneers getting 2 primetime games, the Titans getting 2 primetime games, the Saints getting 3 primetime games. Why? Derek Carr's blah. Michael Thomas can't stay healthy. You look around and you look at the schedule right now. I think the Colts got screwed. I think the Colts absolutely should have been given at least one primetime game to, especially later in the year, to show Anthony Richardson, show off his development, and start to at least get fans nationally exposed to a guy that potentially could be one of the best quarterbacks 3, 4, 5 years from now if he's able to pan out to the best of his ability. So I think that's the one area the Colts absolutely got screwed in schedule-wise, not having a primetime game. It would have been on a Thursday. I have no problem with that. I do think, though, they deserved one primetime game, and they got 0. 0 for the Colts right now. They can flex to Thursday night, so maybe later in the year, if the Colts are an intriguing team, that could change. But as right now, with the schedule released, 0 primetime games for the Colts. All right, let's talk about excitement. Which game are you most excited for? If you're just tuning in, if you're just watching us and checking us out for the first time, welcome. Welcome. We appreciate you joining us right here on the Blue Horseshoe Pod. We are here every single Tuesday, once a week in the off season, along with other, emergency pods along the way that warrant it. So make sure if you check us out for the first time, subscribe to the Blue Horseshoe Pod right here on YouTube, and make sure you download and subscribe wherever you do get your podcasts, the Blue Horseshoe Pod with the bright blue logo. That is where you can find us, bright blue logo, wherever you do get your pods. We had an older feed that has a lot of our old shows, but all of our new shows now are in the feed with the bright blue logo, Blue Horseshoe Pod. Okay, game I'm personally most excited for. Week 9 at the Carolina Panthers for 2 reasons, both obvious. Number 1, Frank Reich revenge. I liked Frank Reich a lot. I know a lot of you did as well. I think it was absolutely time for him to be fired. Was he the number 1 reason with the Colts last year and why they just were an absolute dumpster fire? Absolutely not. But the firing had to be done. The move had to be made. But I'm really interested to see how Frank Reich does in Carolina, because I think he landed in a good spot. You got Bryce Young. You got Adam Thielen and Miles Sanders. So you have some talent there on the offense, a really good defense, an open division where the NFC South, PU, I think right now on paper, the only division worse than the AFC South is the NFC South. So there's a chance Frank Reich right away, even with a rookie quarterback, can come in, compete, play well. So that's obviously one that I'm really excited to see, the Frank Reich revenge game, how he does against the Colts. But also, too, I'm excited to see Anthony Richardson versus Bryce Young. If you listen to the podcast before, you know this already. But if you don't, this is the first time you're checking us out. To me, I was a huge Bryce Young fan heading to this draft. I thought the Colts absolutely should have traded up to the number 1 spot and got Bryce Young. I thought the Colts were going to trade up to the number 1 spot and get Bryce Young. Obviously, that did not happen. I think that was a mistake personally. I think Bryce Young is the best quarterback in this draft class. So I'm really excited to see the guy I think the Colts should have gotten in Bryce Young take on the guy the Colts do have, world of potential, in Anthony Richardson. I think it's always a fun little, battle when you see the quarterbacks going, the rookie quarterback, especially that go 1 and 4. So I'm really excited to see that. That to me is my favorite game. That to me is my favorite game on the slate. Panthers, Week 9 in Carolina, 4:05 game. The only 4:05 game the Colts have outside of their Frankfurt game against the Patriots the next week. So that is one even the networks are telling you that's one where we want to kind of put it on a bigger stage and let people watch in that 4:00 Eastern window. Rookie versus rookie and Frank Reich revenge game here against the Colts. That's the game I'm looking forward to see the most. Also excited for Josh McDaniels to come to town for the first time in Week 17, the second to last home game of the year. First time he will, as a head coach, walk into Lucas Oil Stadium. I know the Boo Birds are going to be out, and they better be going crazy. I hope I'm at that game to boo Josh McDaniels from the second he walks on the field to the second he walks off that snake. I think the Colts absolutely at least dodged a bullet where I thought back in 2018, like a lot of people, that McDaniels' luck marriage was going to work and going to work to great heights. Obviously, it never came to fruition. The Colts, I think when you see how Josh McDaniels coaches now in his second go around with the Raiders, dodged an absolute bullet. He's a clown. He's an absolute fraud. Jeff Saturday beating him last year was all you needed to know about how bad of a coach McDaniels is. So I'm excited for that game, him coming to town for the first time as a head coach since he left the Colts at the altar. I'm sure the Boo Birds will be out and will be plentiful. That is for sure. Another game I'm excited for this Colts team this season, especially, at home, week 1. Look, I know the Jaguars have had the Colts number recently, especially in Jacksonville. They can't win there. It's well documented. But I think Anthony Richardson will start week 1, and expectations should be very, very, very low. Very low for Richardson. Do not have your hopes high that he's starting week 1 and expect a 300-yard, 3-touchdown performance and take down the reigning AFC South champions. But I'm excited to see Richardson in a game atmosphere, what he looks like for the first time, but also, too, I'm excited to see what the offense looks like. Like Shane Steichen has talked about ad nauseum this offseason that the offense is going to be built around the quarterback and the style of quarterback. So we didn't really know what it was actually going to go look like until they finally got the guy that they were going to build the offense around. And as we know, they have Richardson. And the offense, the way I think it should look with Anthony Richardson, should be basically a more balanced version of the Bills offense, meaning you should still throw the ball a ton, but you should utilize Anthony Richardson more as a passer with less designed runs and more scrambles compared to using him like Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson, where there are a lot of quarterback runs, a lot of runs up the middle, and you leave your quarterback exposed. I get Richardson is built like Cam Newton, runs like Lamar Jackson, has a cannon like Josh Allen. Like he is truly a unicorn that we are not used to seeing at the quarterback position. But I don't think that means the Colts should just let him run wild and run him into the line of scrimmage 15, 20 times a game. Like Josh Allen runs about 8 times a game. And of those 8 runs, I would argue half are designed run calls, half are scrambles, where he's back there looking, okay, nothing's open. Let me make a play with my feet. You watch Richardson of Florida, a lot of that is similar. They called quarterback runs, right? They called designed quarterback runs for Richardson, but a lot of his running was in the pocket, read number 1 covered, read number 2 covered, read 3 covered. Okay, let me make a play now with my feet. This is someone who, despite the fact that all the Cam Newton comparisons and Lamar Jackson comparisons, this guy is a thrower first. He looks to throw before he looks to run. That's a quality the Colts absolutely have to lean into this year, and why I kind of use the Bills comparison as the offensive model the Colts should focus, because for Josh Allen, it's kind of the same thing. He does look to throw a ton. He's built huge, right? He's built like a linebacker. He absolutely is mobile and can make plays with his feet, but that's a guy who looks to throw first, then will run if nothing's open. That's how the Colts offense should look to me, in my opinion, and when they'll be at their best is having Anthony Richardson be a thrower first, then be a runner second, and really kind of run when it's your last resort. And so when you look at now week 1 excitement, and the reason why the Jacksonville Jaguars list week 1 to start the season is one of the games that I'm most excited to see, is because I'm excited to see what this offense finally is able to look like. Shane Steichen's going to build the offense to fit what Anthony Richardson does well. I'm excited to see how Josh Downs fits in this offense. I'm excited to see now how Jonathan Taylor is used in the backfield with such a dual threat in Anthony Richardson. How about that? Like, honestly, for the first time I got to go. I'm trying to think here. Pre-Peyton Manning. Like, you got to go back 25 years. For the first time now, the Colts have a dual threat quarterback under center. And I'm not going to count the 3 games Sam Ehlinger started last year. No one's going to count that. But you think about it, right? You had Peyton Manning in 98. You went from Manning to Luck. You went from Luck to Brissett, Brissett to Rivers, Rivers to Wentz, Wentz to Ryan, all built the same. I know Andrew Luck ran the most out of all those quarterbacks, but again, that was more of a pro style guy that was not really a massive threat with his legs too much. Made plays and was super athletic, don't get me wrong, but the quarterback run was not a big part of the offense. This is the first time in at least my lifetime that I can remember that I can actually watch games and remember in my brain where the Colts will have a dual threat at quarterback. So I'm excited to see what it looks like. I cannot wait to kind of finally get going here, get to week number one, and watch the Colts play. And on that note, the other game I'm most excited to see is honestly week 18. Not because it's the opponent, it's the Texans, right? They stink and they'll be in the same position as the Colts. But I'm excited to see week 18 because I want to see how much Anthony Richardson actually progresses in year number one. I want to see when we start week one against the Jaguars, all the way to week 18 to finish off the season at home against the Texans. How does Richardson develop, improve, progress from week one to week 18? I hope that jump is solid. I hope there's not a lot of backsliding or question marks after year number one. But I'm really excited to see now for a quarterback that has 1 year of starting experience at Florida, who has a lot of highs and a lot of lows, who is very inconsistent, even play to play and drive to drive within games at Florida. Excited to see how he does develop with, I think, a real coaching staff that is able to get the most out of him compared to what he had at Florida last year. I do trust Shane Steichen to be the perfect coach for what Anthony Richardson needs in terms of development wise. So I'm really excited to see that week 18 game just because I'm excited to see how he looks in the season finale and kind of compare that to the season opener against the Jaguars. All right. So again, I'd love to hear your thoughts here. Your favorite game you're looking forward to, your Colts record prediction. We'll get to that here in a second. Did the Colts get screwed when it comes to having 0 primetime games this season? All right. The least one I want to conclude with here is record. What will the Colts go in 2023 now that we have the order of the schedule? Because I think also that is important. Not only who you play, and we knew that for a while, but when you do play them. And I kind of went through the win-loss record in my head. I have 5 wins for this team this year. 5-12. And I don't think that's a bad thing, by the way. I don't think 5-12 is a failure. I don't think 5-12 is a number that people should be shocked about. That's who the Colts are. I think the Colts will be better this season than were last season, and a lot of that had to do with just horrendous coaching last season. But even though it's just a 1-win difference, 4 wins last year versus 5 wins, I think this year, I think we'll be feeling a whole lot better about this Colts team and their future going to 2024 than we did coming out of 2022. And I don't know about you, I was sitting there saying, man, this team is screwed. This franchise is screwed. They are going nowhere fast. And so I think when you look at the schedule this year, I think absolutely they could and should sweep the Texans. I understand that is a arguably stupid thing to say when you tied them last year and you lost in week 18. I understand that. I get it. But I think the Colts upgraded drastically at head coach. Now going from, Jeff Saturday to Shane Steichen. I think that just professionalism, a guy who knows what the hell he's doing. I think he's just going to, bare minimum against the Texans, have him put up a better effort than they did last year in that week 1 opener when Hot Rod misses the field goal and the Colts came out flat for 3 quarters in the season opener. Absolutely inexcusable. I do think the Colts will come out better, more competitive. So I think they can absolutely win both games against the Texans. I think they can win 1 game against the Jaguars. Can win 1 game against the Titans. I think the upside, I guess maybe the biggest upside I'm looking at this year in terms of maybe the Colts won't get picked, but I think they will win this game. I'm going to go week 8 at home against the Saints. I'm not buying into the Saints. I know they got Derek Carr, and he's solid, and you got Michael Thomas coming back, allegedly. You got Alvin Kamara there as we wait his suspension for what happened last year, which could impact the Colts if it's, the first 8 games of the season. But I'm just not buying to the Saints as being this team that's going to be 9, 10, 11 win team. I think, though, in that matchup, back in or coming up here in week 8, I think a lot of people will be picking the Saints. That's a game I absolutely think the Colts can win. You should, be able to compete against the Panthers and the Patriots as well. Like, there are a lot of toss-up games here. Falcons stink, Raiders stink, Texans stink. Like, I know the Colts are not talented and they have a lot of questions and they've not done a lot to earn the benefit of the doubt. But I think when you look at this schedule, it is very forgiving. There is not a lot of traps. There's not a lot of gauntlets or rough stretches. Like, I'm trying to see the hardest part of this Colts schedule is honestly maybe weeks 13 to 15 at Tennessee, at Cincinnati, home against Pittsburgh. Like, other than that, I mean, you go Baltimore on the road at the Ravens week 3, home against the Rams week 4, home against the Titans week 5, at the Jaguars week 6. Like, that is tough. Week 7 is the Browns. I think they'll have a bounce back. But if we're talking about Ravens, Rams, Titans, Jaguars, Browns, and that's your toughest gauntlet of the season, it's forgiving. It is very, very forgiving. But with that said, you have a rookie quarterback that has a lot of development to go. I think it's not going to be a 1-year fix or a 1-month fix. I think we're going to have to see a lot of growing pains from Anthony Richardson. So I think that just in and of itself is going to lose the Colts a lot of games when you're a project at quarterback for this year. So even though the schedule is very manageable, even though it's a schedule that is very forgiving, and I think honestly for most teams very easy, I'm going to say 5-12 for the Colts this year as my record prediction for the season. And again, I don't think that's a bad thing. To me, in 2023, I think wins and losses are irrelevant. I really do. Only one thing matters in 2023: the development of Anthony Richardson. Can we as Colts fans going into 2024 feel confident in the direction this team is going in under the leadership at quarterback of Anthony Richardson? All I want for me to believe this time next year is that answer is yes. And as long as that answer is yes, I don't think the Colts record matters. I don't think it matters if they win 2 games or if they win 10 games. As long as I feel good about how Anthony Richardson is progressing and looking in this offense and how Shane Steichen is developing him, I think that's the only thing that matters. Nothing else does. No win number is going to truly impact how I feel about the Colts. And honestly, the more they lose, the better. They're not a playoff team in 2023. You hope Anthony Richardson progresses and plays well. You got a super inexperienced and young secondary as well. You lose a lot of games. You know what that means? You're in the mix for Marvin Harrison Jr. And you want to make Anthony Richardson's development easier? You want to get on a fast track to success? Well, one of the ways you do that is by getting him the best receiver in college football this upcoming year, Marvin Harrison Jr. You go 5-12, you go 4-13, you're in those sweepstakes. You were in the Marvin Harrison Jr. sweepstakes. So that's another reason why the wins should not matter. 7 wins in the middle of nowhere. Now, again, it's not going to be that upset because it is going to be, probably mostly because of Anthony Richardson playing better than we think. But if Richardson, as long as he progresses, as long as there's a reason to believe that this gamble the Colts took at number 4 in getting Richardson is going to pay off or is going to at least look like, okay, it was worth it, I don't care at the end of the year what the Colts record is. I don't care in the slightest. All right, so if this is the first time you've tuned in to the Blue Horseshoe Pod, welcome. Thanks for staying up late with us. If you're catching on the replay, welcome. Hey, we still appreciate you. We hope you stop by more often. So make sure while you're here, subscribe to the Blue Horseshoe Pod right now on YouTube. You're already here. You already found us. You did the hard part. Boom, one little click, you subscribe, you get now we can get all of our fresh episodes we host, or at least I'm solo today. Ryan Hickey, welcome. But George Bremer, my co-host, and a name that everyone should know, does a great job of reporting daily on the Colts in Anderson, Indiana. We'll be back on Friday morning with a brand new pod to react to the schedule, talk about win-loss, talk about no primetime games for the Colts. Did they get screwed? So we're here every Tuesday on the Blue Horseshoe Pod in the offseason. Also drop emergency pods as we go. So that's why subscribing to the Blue Horseshoe Pod here on YouTube, and also checking us out, downloading, subscribing, wherever you do get your podcasts, is the best and easiest way to always stay up to date on everything Blue Horseshoe Pod. This has been a lot of fun, a great little instant reaction to kind of get the juices going. It feels nice. Talk about real football again, talk about some actual games on the schedule. But when you do look, at least right now, the schedule release, I do think for the Colts, wins and losses are irrelevant. And I think now, with a soft opening, I would say Anthony Richardson absolutely should start here. All right, let's read some comments before we do get out of here. Wyatt Law writes, when the playoffs roll around, the Colts will have some national audiences. I think it's a bit dismissive to think the Colts will be a bad team this year. In case you're just missing tuning in, my season prediction for the Colts, now that we see the schedule and when the games are, I say 5-12. 5-12 to me is my Colts record prediction. I think they can beat the Texans, can beat the Raiders, should beat the Falcons. I think they can beat the Saints, Patriots. Like there's some, it's not a murderer's row schedule here, but look at where the Colts are. They're first of all, they are nowhere near playoff contention. Expectations should not be there, and that's okay. They don't have to be a playoff contender in 2023. They are not. And that's okay when it comes to the fact that 2023 is all about progression of Anthony Richardson. This is the first time I think in years where expectations for the Colts are actually where they should be. Expectations should not be high. There should not be playoff chatter or talk about the Colts being a dark horse playoff team. Anthony Richardson has a lot of talent. He also needs a lot of work. Let's give him time to develop more consistency. There's a reason why at Florida they are 6-7 in his only year there. There's a reason why even Anthony Richardson, with every physical tool that God could have given you, he has in his body: height, size, speed, arm strength, athletic ability. He has literally, like, if we're talking about charts 1 to 10, he is at a 10 at every single athletic ability you could possibly have, every single physical trait you need to succeed as a quarterback. Richardson is a 10 out. Why did he not go number 1 overall? Why did the Texans not take him at number 2? Why did no one trade up to number 3, give a better offer than the Texans gave the Cardinals to get Anthony Richardson? It's because of the insane inconsistency. Can he put it together? Nobody knows. I'm hoping he can. I think he's in the right situation for him to do so. I do trust Shane Steichen to, I think, be the right coach to develop him, but it's going to take time. He's nowhere near a finished product. Look at Josh Allen. Look at Josh Allen with the Bills. It took Josh Allen 3 years to develop true consistency where this team was a legitimate threat in the AFC. I have no problem waiting 3 years for Anthony Richardson if that's the path he's going down. But I think the worst thing any Colts fan can do this year is expect them, like last year, to be a playoff team, because you are going to be disappointed yet again. I have bought into the cheese a lot. I was in on Matt Ryan. I was in on Carson Wentz. Actually, ironically, maybe this is good news for any Colts fan listening, I was out on Phillip Rivers, and boy, was I wrong. That's the best year we've seen since Andrew Luck. But I don't think we should be talking about playoffs. We should not be saying the P word now with this Colts team in 2023. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Will they be fun? Yes. Will they be intriguing? Absolutely. I think the Colts are going to be a really kind of fun young team to watch this year. I was going to say the Thunder, but the Thunder made the play-in, so I don't want to say that because they're in playoff contention. But the Thunder from last year, maybe they have a lot of young players, guys, trial by fire, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. A lot of losses, but a lot of young talent. That to me is what the Colts are going to be like in 2023, and I'm okay with that. I am more than okay with that. All right, so that will wrap it up, and then we'll do wrap it up for this late night. Appreciate all the night owls joining us right here on this live stream. First time we ever did one on the Blue Horseshoe Pod, a little YouTube live. So appreciate you joining in. And again, make sure you subscribe to the Blue Horseshoe Pod right here on YouTube, and we're also wherever you do get your podcasts. And if you're listening to us for the first time, we will be back with my co-host George Bremer tomorrow morning, as Friday morning, in case you're watching this on the replay and not watching it live. We'll be back Friday morning with a full reaction to the Colts schedule, record prediction, primetime games. Did they get screwed or not? We'll have it all discussed. So appreciate all those who have tuned in. We'll talk to you on Friday morning right here on the Blue Horseshoe Podcast.